before we start, I would like to applaud the University of Stellenbosch, because every Thursday you encourage your students who's going to be the next leaders of this country to wear black. And to wear black is to say that we are against rape of women in our country, and that we are against homophobia, against racism, against sexism. And I would like to start tonight, because this is also the legacy of Russel Botman. And I would like you to stand so that we can have a moment of silence for all the women that suffered and died at the hands of their beloved. And also of all the people that's been marginalized, because in our minds we are prejudiced or have marginalized them. If we can just stand and have a moment of silence, so that the black that we wear is not just a color, but it's a meaning towards action. It is well with my soul, with my soul, it is well, it is well, it is well with my soul, it is well, it is well with my soul, with my soul, it is well, it is well with my soul. I thank you. To Dr. Russel Botman, Scots Botman, ag in die koon verbondenheid. Reggie, to the Minister Andrew Marais, to Mjiko Mbundlu, that's also my boss that's here, to the SBR family that's here, Marlene le Roux, the SBR directors, to the Archbishop and Tutu and Leah Foundation that is also here, to the Chrysalis Youth Academy that's also here, to all of you, to my family, to everybody. I'm actually so overwhelmed. I actually want to cry. I never thought that you will come to listen to me. I'm actually a very, very simple person. For me, it is about other people. It is about when person pass through you, how do you make that person feel? And this is what it is for me such an honor to speak on the life and the legacy and about action about Russel Botman. Because he always made you feel good. I can still remember before I start, he was a friend, hy was my dance maat. Want because he started very late to dance in his life. On his 60th birthday, we Kapzela. You know the Kapzela? We Kapzela. Because it's life. And Beryl said, Marlene, los my husband, man. And Russel and I had a strict dassie on, and we just further Kapzela. But why I'm saying this to you, this is not just an academic lecture. It's about life. I'm going to talk to you about life. And how, when we're going to leave here tonight, it's not about this lecture, but how we're going to take this legacy forward into action. And how we're going to lead this generation to say, I'm going to be a leader who's going to be ethical, transparent, and want to be the next Vice-Rector of this university. And I'm going to lead it so that we can be a country that can be humane and dearness. And you're going to ask me, why from brutalization to hope? Why did I choose this particular title? I would like again to say it is a privilege for me to present this lecture in the memory of my friend, fellow activist, because he was an activist, Russel Botman. But I also want to honor Dr. Beryl van der Schols Botman, who walked alongside Russel throughout their time together, an educational activist in her own right. A result of their activism is the Russel Botman Bursary Fund, launched in October 2013 on Russell's 60th birthday, as an effort to invest in young people and their education. I thank you, because education is the pillars of our society. Because it was not about presents, it was about giving back. Most of us, this title, as we're sitting here, all of us, as Africans, come from a brutalized background that deeply dehumanized us as citizens of this country and of this continent. How do we move more from brutalized people to citizens of hope? Because one of the programs, and the program of Russel, was the Hope program. How do we move from a system that constantly categorized us and still labels us based on our race, gender, sexual orientation, bodily ability, social class, location, rural or urban, township or scheme? Yes, I'm coming from the scheme. And I'm not scared to say it because this is who I am. I just have beautiful red lips now. To a place where there is a home for all of us, with all our diverse identities, but inclusivity. How are we going to move from always just saying we're diverse? When are we going to use the word inclusivity? I want you to think. How do we create a place of hope where our stories are heard and integrated, and where people can realize that we are more than a specific language, culture, or religion? We are more than that. And you can only say this in your mother tongue, and I will translate it. Russel was 'n persoon van eenvoud. Nie 'n persoon van ego nie. So if you have an ego here tonight, you had a different lecture. Die lewe skuld jou niks. Dis wat ek altyd sê. Life owes you nothing. 'n Mens word nie gebore met 'n taal of geloof of kultuur nie. Dit word aangeleer as gevolg van ons omgewing en ons lewensomstandighede. You're not born with religion. You're not born with language, and you're not born with culture. You are born into those three categories. And you can decide whether you're going to be deculturalized. And that is what I want to leave you also with. Apartheid het deur wetgewing ons soos diere gegroepeer wat na slagpale gelei was, en dit was van almal van ons. So slagdiere is ons verdeel, geklassifiseer en van ons natuurlike sosiale menswees ontneem. Apartheid was brutal in all its forms. It had a brutalization on white, colored, Indian, Chinese, whoever color you were grouped in a particular groups. We all were brutalized. Russel Botman was first of all an activist, as he was shaped as a minister and theologian at the University of the Western Cape. This, I believe, deeply influenced his work as church leader. He was appointed at this faculty as a public theologian in 2000, the Beyers Naudé Centre for Public Theology, which was founded as his idea and his initiative, is now appropriately the keeper of the Russel Botman archives. His activism and his Theology of Hope also served as foundation for his time as Vice-Rector of Teaching and later as the Rector and Vice-Chancellor of this university. And I think the most important thing, before you can even come a CEO or a Vice-Chancellor, you need to know the heart of the organization. How does it tick in order to understand? And for Russel to start the Beyers Naudé B gave him the chance to understand what is the heart and how do we need a university to create hope. We all know he was born in Heidendal, Bloemfontein, 1 year after the 1952 defiance campaign of the ANC, and completed his high school 1967 and to 1971 in Kliptown, Johannesburg, a vibrant community of very poor to comfortable off people. Of course, not everybody was poor in the struggle. But Russel was also an artist. He knew a number of English poems by heart. I think, Beryl, you will know that. And composed quite a few poems in Afrikaans reflecting on young love, the drought, a farewell, and the fleeting nature of life. As high school student, he was at the forefront in founding a drama and debate society at Kliptown High School with Yashin Bayat, both of them very good public speakers. Even as students in the tumultuous years of unrest at UWC in the 1970s, he continued to write poetry. He was a dreamer, a loner, secretly in love. That's why he loved just being with women and make us feel so good. Thank you, Beryl, for sharing him all the time. But always and always the activist. But the activist in God, questioning God and society. In 1974, as a 21-year-old, because I think he was ahead of his time, he wrote, "There's power in politics, riots in relationships. Don't we know that riots? I'm from UWC in the 80s, passionate love affairs. There's hope in revolution, trust in nuclear power." I want to repeat, he wrote, "There's power in politics, riots in relationships. There's hope in revolution, trust in nuclear power." As the Tokalok, and I promise in verbondenheid, our wonderful Professor Nico Koopman, that I won't tell what the Tokaloko was up to, because I was in Kasinga in the hostel. Actively participated in the Vereniging van VCS. I was also in that VCS. Taking several plays on tour in the dark shadows of 1976. And I can still so vividly remember when the Caspers comes, they first go to the Tokaloka. Then the Tokaloka will run over to us, poor ladies' hostels. And then they will scream, and you remember the swalcoes. And some of them will have swalcoes on. I won't say the names because they are now in high places. So I just want to say, in between the riots and the seriousness building this new South Africa, I will never stand in front of a Casper again, Scotty, never. Because that time we were fearless. That is the time in the era Russel Botman came from. Fearless. Fearless to tell the truth. Alan Boesak presented a talk on campus titled, "The Role of the Church in the Black Struggle." Some students rejected the role of the church. Yes, some of us rejected it because the church was alle nasies moediere dien. We said, "Hallo, moediere dien, it's now time to march in front of that Casper." But Russel accepted the role of the church as a liberator of the poor and oppressed, not only from oppression but also from poverty. Because this is what it is. It was poverty doesn't know color, and today still as well. He accepted that this struggle should also be a theological one. In September 1976, he was expelled by the university after being arrested and interrogated for anti-apartheid activities by the security barons of the apartheid state. And do we know how they can interrogate that time? In late December 1976, in the Karoo hamlet of Marydale, far away from student politics, he wrote, "The pulpit staggers, the theology topples." I want to repeat. The pulpit staggers, the theology topples. Where are you now? Where's the church now? That was written in 1976. Theologie was destyds vasgevang in 'n political stelsel. Russel het bly studeer en wyd gelees. Hy het nagraaste grade verwerf. Deur hierdie studies sy geloof en politieke bewussyn oor armoede en onreg, het Russel Botman tot die besef gekom dat hy nie anders kan om teologie in aksie om te sit nie. In short, Russel realized you can't just stand and be on the pulpit telling people like the finger and then theology means absolutely nothing. He was a theologian with action. He didn't preach to be liked or to be loved. He wanted to have the people to move, but also to speak about marginalization and poverty. But Russel Botman se uitstaande nalatenskap was om die Bybel in hedendaagse kontekste te plaas. Hy het oor die gawe besit om te verstaan dat hy nie die middelpunt hoef te wees nie, maar dat hy wel versoening kan fasiliteer. He understands his role, that he doesn't need to be in the forefront. He doesn't need to be the person to shout the loudest. He can be the backroom person to facilitate peace. And he was so effective to do that. And to put the Bible into context, because the Bible is about stories. And the Bible and Christianity and interfaith, that was Russel also about, is to be with all the interfaith communities, because it's about humanity. It's about a higher being. It's about the Creator. It's just a different means of how we pray towards the higher being. And that is the essence of Russel Botman. On hope. We all know by now, his theology did not topple. He didn't topple. He became a preacher of hope, not just in the church, to this university, and to the universities, and to Africa. He was loved tremendously in Africa. On 23rd January 2003, he preached at the establishment of the Mandela Rhodes Foundation. He preached about the 2 poems in Psalm 126. Go read Psalm 126. Where the second poem proclaims the hope of the people looking forward to the deepening of the transformation in their society. Russel explained it as follows. It is the deepening of the transformation that repairs the dignity of those who struggle to make an existence in the most secluded towns of our country. We could put that text and psalm into the now. Are we hiding behind our religion? Or are we living the now? It indicates the necessity of a deepening of equality so that the daughter of the farm worker can have the same opportunity for success as the son of the farmer. The day this country is going to be humane and to have dearness is the day the child of the farm worker and the farm owner is going to attend the same school. And the day we're going to share the same meal is when we're going to share the same nagmaal at the same nagmaaltafel at the same church. And I'm that little girl of the Jongdochtersbond that had the opportunity, because of the Russel Botmans in my life, that come from humble beginnings, that can today stand here. Let us never forget where we come from. And let us never lead with egos, because the ego you're going to leave behind, and you're not going to take that ego in the grave with you. The legacy that Russel leaves behind was he made sure that the farm worker and the farmer at Stellenbosch University will be one. In a way, the Libertas Choir that is performing here tonight is one way of bringing the daughter of the farm worker and the son of the farmer together. Die Libertas Koor is gestig om te sê, ons het 'n toekoms. The choir that's going to perform tonight, I'm one of the founder members. Johan and Louina, we know the Afrikaans women started that in 1999. It's to say, can we sing in 1990 it started. Can we sing together? It was Afrikaans women as a country, because it was burning. We were on the brink of 1994. And I thought, let me join them. Let me taste as an activist how it is to share a stage with white people. And let us see and feel whether we can sing together. How surprised I was. Because we're all sitting here, we are racist. Because I'm a racist. Every day I must stand in front of the mirror and say, I can't think about this person like that. Because it's in my DNA. I'm 51 years old. So if I say I wasn't born into a racist community, I'm telling a big fat lie. Until you can't confront your demons and say, this is where I am, we're never going to move forward as a country. Because every individual of us sitting here today, confront your demons of sexism, racism, and start that journey. The Libertas Choir was that journey for me, because I joined them with prejudice. I was prejudiced. Wat 'n voorreg was dit vir my om deel te kon wees. Because the choir, besides, that is what the arts do. It takes you without political speeches and just puts you further in touch with yourself, but also with another person, without being somebody else telling you what to do. We sang each other's songs, but it was also a statement against the brutality of the political system in the same spirit as the initiative, as the women who took part in the historic march in 1952 against the dehumanizing Dompas system. We were committed to each other, to breaking down the categories that divide and dehumanize us through culture and song, so setting us free. Dit was ook Russel Botman se visie. 'n Aktivis wat kultuur en sang gesien het as 'n brug om die verdeeldheid van die verlede te oorkom, die skep van menslikheid, van deernis en respek. Deur sy betrokkenheid by die kunste ook, het Russel Botman gestaan vir gelyke regte, vir toegang tot die kunste en teologie, vir die regte van vroue en van LGBTI persone. Sy nalatenskap was die stryd om menslikheid vir almal. He stood for everybody. He stood for the community of LGBTI to be included in our society and in our churches. So as church leaders, We can't just say one-sided and say, today we're going to preach this, but we practice something else. This, today, I hope, will be your turning point. The Hope Project, launched by Russel Botman in July 2010, was a natural outflow of his activism and his theology of hope. Russel deeply believed that there's a hope for millions of people on the African continent, but he did not want to give the project a religious flavor. For him, hope was not just faith in a better future. It had to be created and it had to be offered to disadvantaged communities. It should not be where faith excludes people who's different. That is why he was so conscious that it must not just have a religious flavor. He reiterated that the Hope Project is the university's way of living up to these responsibilities, Vice-Chancellors. I would argue that Russel Botman has left a legacy of hope behind, not only as theologian, but also as a lover and promoter of the arts. Now I come to the arts. Russel Botman served as chairman of the board of the Klein Nationale Kunstefees from 2006 to 2011. The aim of this predominantly Afrikaans festival is to present art in all its forms, inclusive of all people using Afrikaans. When President Nelson Mandela received the freedom of the town at the 2001 Kaka Festival, he started by asking the crowd to please excuse his Tokolosi Afrikaans. He referred to the changing times and the changing role of Afrikaans in our society and how the developing nature of the festival reflects this, saying in his speech that, I quote, while Langenhoven could still think of Afrikaans as die enigste wit menstaal wat nie klaargemaak uit Europa gekom het nie, this festival increasingly affirms that Afrikaans is not a language of whites only, nor a European language. It is a language that is rooted in Africa. Russel shared this sentiment when he became chairman of the board of the KAK and believed that the KAK can overcome the divisions and strife of the past, that it can play a liberating role in the whole of South African society. I myself partook in a debate at the KAK in die rondgaande verhoog, and the Burger newspaper said, that time I was still the Director of Development and Audience and Education at Artscape, an article on the debate of KAK, and I argued that Kunstekaap has an extreme viewpoint. This was the criticism about my viewpoint on the proposed exclusivity of Afrikaans cultural festivals, according to Le Roux. That's what the journalist said. The festivals epitomize the post-1994 split of South African culture into so-called islands of ethnicity, which proves that there has been little sign of transformation in the performing arts since the demise of apartheid. Le Roux continues by saying that artists, productions, and audiences predominantly reflect a white culture, and that festivals are merely an extension of the Afrikaner culture, a culture that has changed little since 1994. She criticizes productions of the performing arts for being ever too Eurocentric and blames the government for mismanagement of cultural funding, as well as the Department of Arts and Culture, which continues to fund Eurocentric state theatres. This was in the Burger, 3rd of April 2003. In short, Le Roux supports a theoretical school that feels that white people with their Afrikaner culture are undermining South African culture. They are able to do this as they have the economic power to literally make theatre speak their language. This, however, not a complete version of where I stood, okay, on the arts at that time. In 2006, I concluded the KAK debate with the following. Die uitvoerende kunste veral die rondgaande verhoë bied 'n wonderlike geleentheid om die kultuurklowe in ons land te oorbrug en hegte bande van begrip en aanvaarding tussen al ons mense te smee. Hierdie rondgaande verhoë kan verseker dat die uitvoerende kunste die kultuurraamwerke waarbinne baie van ons, veral Afrikaners, steeds vasgevang sit, deurbreek word en dat ons bevry word van die ongeldige aannames en vrese wat ons steeds heens mekaar koester. Kunstefeeste soos die een in Oudtshoorn het die potensiaal om 'n samebindende fees van alle kulture, deur alle kulture en alle kulture te word. Indien ons erns is om te verseker dat die stories vir onregte gemeenskappe die vrugte van die vryheid pluk, waarvoor hulle gestry het en ons 'n samelewing wil word, wat op sterk demokratiese waardes geskoei is, durf ons nie die belangrike rol materialistiese onderwys en die kunste hierin kan speel negeer nie. This was more than a decade ago. Where do you and I stand now? What do we mean when we define ourselves as Afrikaner? It's time that South Africa's must start to define themselves differently. Flowing from Russel's legacy of hope, I want to ask the questions I want to ask now. What does a deepening of equality mean for people in the arts? How do we repair people's dignity through theatre? How do we deepen the transformation of our society through the arts, through language, through religion, or just who we are? How can we become activists of hope? And how can we say to ourselves, how am I going to combat these demons that's confronting me? And the question I hope you're asking yourself as well, as I am struggling with this every single day. I want to try to answer some of these questions by referring, and I want to thank the Board of Artscape for allowing the team, I'm a team player, for us to think out of the box. Because if you can't think out of the box, and if you can't live fearlessly, and if you can't believe what is right, then you're not going to move forward. In the past Heritage Month, we had the privilege also to host. And before I come to that, I want to say one of the saddest things I think all of us have experienced. I want to start briefly talking about the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, the TRC, as a piece of theatre. Just as a preacher standing on the pulpit is part of drama. Preacher for me is drama. Is it drama? Yeah? The interpretation of other people's lives. Yeah? And that's why Russell could play this game, not a game, but could understand, interpret, because theatre is about life. It is about putting a stage production about people's lives. An interpretation of the Bible is interpretation of stories that happened centuries ago. And how do you interpret? And how do you take your interpretation where you come from and take it forward? And the TRC was established with the task of investigating and documenting gross violation of human rights committed during the period March 1960 to May 1994. I just want to say, just that period, not even before. It was required to compile as complete a picture as possible of the conflicts of the past, with recommendations to the Minister of Justice, there was recommendations that was made. This happened by way of truth-telling, seeking for some kind of justice. The saddest part for me was that many victims were required to open their wounds in public by telling their stories and seeking for the truth of what happened to them or their loved ones. We all cried. We all experienced it. And we all said, what now? But these wounds were never dressed and were left festering. I can still remember so vividly. Archbishop Desmond Tutu was still the chaplain at UWC. So I was not just at the VCS, where the activism was more, I moved there. I was a Manla Popipi at the VCS, and then I moved then to AFS, Anglican Student Federation. So Thabo, Archbishop Thabo Makgoba, we were again in the Anglican Students Activists. So I was in all the churches, the activists as well. Professor Nico Koopman will say how I used to sing in front, lead the singing there. But I can still remember the Viduka that time. And we as Anglican students, who was led by Archbishop Desmond Tutu, climbed in a lorry. And we went to a church there. And it was the shooting, it was just Caspers. And I was an 18-year-old from the rural town Wellington that was still defined, very racist, colored girl going to the township because I'm convinced this is not right what is happening. And we climbed out of that lorry and it was just tear gas once again. And a 3-year-old came because we went to go and visit and to the church because that time parents were shot in front of their little ones, 3-year-olds, 5-year-olds. I must take you back to understand what is hope and action, because we can't forget in order to move forward. And I couldn't see in front of me. It was a 4 or 5-year-old that ran to me and put Vaseline on my eyes. And today, I'm thinking, what happened to that 4-year-old and 5-year-old? And that is why I need to speak about TRC. Perpetrators of gross human violation got away, and the victims were left behind without any justice. In this way, the TRC, to a degree, also dehumanized people. All right. We as South Africans get bogged down in structures like the TRC, like this faculty, like a theatre, and forget about the people we serve. The TRC has become a curiosity for postgraduate students as a kind of case study and research laboratory to get their PhDs. Well, what role can we play in restoring people's humanity and showing go to them that their stories matters? Let's take up Archbishop Desmond Tutu's plea all the time to the government, and I'm asking our new leader, our president, Cyril Ramaphosa, let's take this recommendation that's been made, all the recommendations, seriously, and give back the dignity and humanity to our TRC victims and to our people. Let's start now. I'm nearly done. I want to tell you about Oma Katrina Iso. She's 85 and lives in Uppington. As the last fluent speaker of the Sangnu language. In her own words, she says, "Ek is gebore En ek het die Ngqu taal uit my ma se bors gedrink. Ek het groot geword en my grootword jare het ek net die Ngqu taal gehoor. En ek het net met die Ngqu taal groot geword en ek het hom gepraat. En dit is ons taal, die Ngqu taal. And what Oma Katrina is actually saying to us, every language matters. Every person matter. And the Ngqu taal mustn't be just for Oma Katrina. It should matter to every South African. Her life story was showcased recently at Artscape Theatre in a production called Katrina, die dansende taal, the dancing language. What was so amazing that the dancer, Kerwin Fortuin, who grew up in Makassar, that doesn't know the Ngqu taal, but his ancestors are also from Uppington, are also from the Khoi, from the San, from the Griqua, from the Afrikaner, from the isiXhosa. He had the opportunity to choreograph this beautiful dance and with a language as the backdrop. And the movement of the language that is rooted from the Kruiper clan as a departure point. And it takes it into contemporary urban field. So why did we do it? It's in order for young people to understand where you come from matters, but who you are now is of utmost importance. And that is sometimes that we as older people want to hang on to things just because we want to hang on to the old things of the past. The music was composed by a wonderful singer-songwriter, Connie de Villiers, with the aim of telling the story and the new language of Oma Katrina through song and dance. Two worlds that doesn't know about each other, they don't know each other, came together through the arts. This is what the arts does. It's a vehicle that brings people together to tell each other's story. The following day, we performed the international acclaimed Professor D. Suplaikis in concert with Zinzi Nogavo. This concert placed again the beauty of African music through indigenous instruments, taking the audience of the journey of various indigenous instruments and the wide repertoire soulful voice of Zinzi. Social issues were addressed through music, but above all, the goal was to introduce the beauty and harmony of traditional music and instruments to a new and diverse audience as another way of storytelling. One of these bow-like instruments is the uyawi or uhubu, a string instrument indigenous to South Africa and traditionally played by women. It stands alongside other indigenous instruments that are monuments to Southern African music making. Trying to record the notes of Yohadi with any universal certainty in Western musical language remains a riddle. This is perhaps because the Yohadi is tuned by hand and the chord acts as a resonation chamber against the body of its player. And Mama Madusini, I want to pay tribute to her tonight. And why is this particular instrument so beautiful? Because it breathes through the breast of a woman. It can only make a sound when you lift it and it breathes through the breaths. And what does breast gives? Gives life. And these beautiful indigenous instruments that was never affirmed in our country is now affirmed in our country. Isn't it the beauty of the new South Africa? It can play alongside the classical instruments, and we are witness to this. But the beauty of it, it's in appearance, it's very similar to the bow used by the Sand people. Different music played on similar instrument, different stories with the same vision. And to illustrate, why am I saying this? Is to illustrate, tonight here, we have different stories that are here tonight. But we have one vision, it's South Africa. We have so many similarities sitting here tonight. But we want to concentrate on the differences. Let's concentrate on the similarities. And this is what these productions was trying to say to all of us. Every year, as Artscape, we're taking the theatre to the people. This is the best project ever. And why we're doing it is to celebrate who we are as a nation. That the Madusinis of the world, and thank you, Minister, that you always support us, that you walk the talk and not just talking. That along the classical dancer, contemporary dancer, the indigenous dancer, the singer, the opera singer, contemporary, just dancers, just artists, is to say, this is who we are, celebrating us as a nation. And we also celebrated. We took the orchestra to Gugulethu to celebrate our pride and our freedom with the orchestra in Gugulethu. And why are we saying this? Because in the 1960s, in one of several areas, this township was established. And with it was the Diamond Jubilee Anniversary Committee. We said, we want to celebrate with the people of Gugulethu and with the opera singers that is traveling the world. But we wanted to remember the Gugulethu 7, the young men who were members of Umkhonto we Sizwe, the armed wing of the African National Congress that time, who were ambushed and killed by South African security forces on the morning of March the 3rd, 1996. And how do we want to remember that? It was with the orchestra. And the orchestra played the national anthem and the singers. How do we bring worlds together and to heal? It's for you that is privilege, is to shed some of your privilegeness. It's to give. It's for the orchestra to get off the structure of Artscape and the comfort and to move to Gugulethu and to pay homage to the mothers of the 7th of these young men and to say, halala, we remember. It was so befitting that we could do that. And why do we do all of this? I want to read to you the first paragraph of the preamble that we're trying as an arts institution. The Artscape Theatre Centre has a vision to be the world's leading centre of the performing arts and creative excellence. Our passion is to be an inclusive space for all, people from every corner of our province, irrespective of race, creed, and religion. This inclusive space is also about providing our expertise to every genre within the arts sector. We will continue through our education and outreach program to bring about discussion and reflection towards building a socially cohesive nation. Our aim is to bring people together with a singular goal, creating shared and safe spaces for people to come together to breathe. There needs to be a space where we can just be. There we don't just need to be put in boxes. And tonight, I want to ask the university to uphold the Russel Botman legacy. Let's walk the path that our students can breathe. That our students can breathe in a space, but in a space of inclusivity. That there mustn't be the drinking holes only for certain people. There should be not anymore a soki. There should be a soki and a gumba together. Then we're going to talk. Let us change the languages of the past. Let our elderly people sitting here that was at the university shed those traditions. Let's shed it. Let's transformation not just be on paper. Let's not just have transformational officials. I don't want to put anybody out of a job. But let us not, and this is for all the universities sitting here today, let us not have CEOs with egos and with titles. Let them be facilitators of hope. Let them realize that they are governing institutions that are paid by the state. Let us have leadership that know what it is to have ethics. So when the media is not there, and when the lights is not there, and you're not going to get a performance bonus, let's speak the truth. Let's speak the truth so that the child that needs to pass this university from Kayamandi, or from Mbakweni, from the scheme, from Peyton Place, from Poloni Dorp, from Lavender Hill, Menenberg, Gugulet, to I name it. Not because of language and religion or culture be denied access. Because then we uphold the apartheid structures. Let us strive to reverse the legacies of apartheid involved also young people with disabilities in disadvantaged areas and arts activities. It's very important because Russel, I was the keynote speaker when he opened this particular unit. 4 students with disabilities. Let it not just be units, people. The units should not be units only for students with disability. Hello? Smell the roses. It should be units that says accessibility for all. Because it's about integration. It's about equality and equity. And it is cut right through. Equality and equity means we can all be equal. Equity means I need to have resources to be equal. Yesterday my caliper broke. It was a terrible day. It's the thingy that I wear that makes me look glamorous. That's my assistive device. I can only operate if I have this caliper with 60,000 rand. I paid 60,000 rand. So I need equity, resources, in order for me to enable me to function in society equal. And that is the plight of persons with disability. Don't use words like visually impaired, I am blind, or I am physically challenged. Hello. You are using just beautiful fancy names not to give me the resources. And this is what we want to say tonight here. A person with a disability needs resources. And I want to say to HETSA tonight, the Higher Education Board, I want to come onto that board, to say where are the students with disability in the rural areas at higher education? Because your recruitment strategy you need to relook at. You need to say that child from the most remote rural area, that girl child should have access to primary school and to high school with a disability. If you come to tertiary, hello, students, I'm talking to you. You already privileged because you're at the university. Stop this nonsense of burning down our university. Stop it. Because we fought for you and we stand in front of a casper for you. Stop it now. And stop burning down our libraries. How are we going to get the books back? Now, why do I say that? Because we were Amandla Poppetjies. Nee? Ek moet vir julle sê. Because this is going to be on YouTube. Come sit with us. Let us look at dialogue. Because there's a sector of our community who is persons with disabilities that is not even on the agenda yet. If a person with a disability comes to the university, oh my good grief, it's not just being at the university. If you're blind, you need the tools to be equal to that student. If you're deaf, you need an interpreter, a sign language interpreter. Am I right, my friend? Huh? One of my childhood friends, Marion Kibudu, I want to mention, she was enrolled in the 80th year at Stellenbosch University at that time. We were brutalized on all levels. She wears 2 calipers. I had polio, so I just a little bit on the one side. She has both sides. So she wears calipers. So I will be hopple on this side, she will be hopple on 2 sides. Because there was no resources to make her equal, Professor, she dropped out. Because her parents didn't have any resources. Thank the Lord I was at the University of the Wild Blacks that time. Huh? Because there was the relay that happened. Everything, because the university was designed so that it had a wire, a fence around it so that the Caspers can come in. Can you think psychologically why UWC had a fence around it? Is to capture us. The other universities never had a fence. So as an Amandla Poppetjie that time, I was the first person with a disability at UWC. I could move around because it wasn't so big. And Professor Koopman would abba me, okay? Because everyone wanted to abba me. But what is important here is that don't just establish units for the sake of units. Make it active, accessible units for equity. It should assess what it is to have equity for persons with disability. And it starts, policies should reflect. You first start to do your recruitment, and it counts for everything. The policies of our country and the policies of our institutions should first be tested to the poorest of the poor before it's being implemented, not the other way around. It should not be officials driving the policies and writing it. No. If the policy can't assist and be implemented by the poorest of the poor, push it away. We're a country that is built on policies with no implementation. On Afrikaans, it is clear that Russel Botman's time as chairperson of the KAKNK and as rector and vice-chancellor of Stellenbosch University was intimately connected with the debate of Afrikaans as language of education and as doorkeeper at a cultural festival. I also serve as chairperson, and I'm very proud of it, of the SBR Stichting vir Bemagtiging deur Afrikaans. An NPO focused on empowerment through literacy and education, and really going to the corners of every single farm school, where the education department doesn't reach, SBR reach. Well done to the team of the SBR. And we're also multifaceted. It's also about Afrikaans and East Xhosa because we're busy with the nation. We're using the infrastructure of Afrikaans because Afrikaans has money. I want to make it very clear. Afrikaans is not dying. Please wake up, smell the roses. Okay? Afrikaans is not dying. It will never die. It's got money. It's got trust. It's got everything. So we at SBR is using the infrastructure to assist the child also. In Gugulethu, in Vredenburg with isiXhosa, that's Afrikaans. And we using Afrikaans as a tool and as an enabler for nation building and to have access to equal education. Russel Botman gave the 4th Matthew Sposa lecture at the Afrikaanse Taal Museum in Paarl. He did so in both his capacity as a rector and vice-chancellor and of Stellenbosch University and as chairman of the board of KAKNG. His message in the lecture was very simple. Dat Afrikaans vir almal 'n brug na 'n beter lewe kan wees. Afrikaans can be a bridge to a better life for everyone. How are you using Afrikaans? Are you using Afrikaans as a bastion for Afrikaner? Or are you using Afrikaans as a tool, as a nation builder, as an enabler to bring our people together to a South African identity? At the end of the lecture, he described himself as a child of 1976, a student at UWC where the shockwaves of Soweto had a tremendous impact. He also witnessed the result of an unjust language policy, and as rector, together with his colleagues, had the opportunity to set the injustice right. Thank you, Nico. Thank you to Russell. What they wanted to achieve was justice in Afrikaans, equal access to all opportunities. It is not a language that is in danger, as I said, but the future of our country. It is not our fears that is in danger, but our hopes. Afrikaans is a tool of the 21st century that can contribute to the development of other African languages. isiZulu is spoken so well all over. Oh, come on, Afrikaans. Let's unite, man. We are Kutanda. Something English cannot do. English can't do that for us. It's our indigenous languages that must unite in order for us to understand each other. He ended with a poem. Russell ended with a poem, Beryl, that the Cape poet Adam Small, and tonight we're standing here in 1973, wrote after this brutal removal of District 6. It was brutal. Klim uit, die klippe uit. Op Piali, klim uit, klippe uit. Klim op. Klim uit, die klippe uit. Op, Piali, klim uit, klim uit. Klim op. And tonight I want to ask you, are we still underneath those stones? Can we breathe? And it's important for us to ask ourselves, where are we? Afrikaans is daar te verbind om te bemagtig, te ontbrug en te verryk. Afrikaans is inclusief. Afrikaans is my language. It's my mother tongue. Afrikaans doesn't belong to anyone. Afrikaans is your language, just as isiXhosa is your language, just as all the other indigenous languages is your language. And we need to move away. Our children need to have quality education in their language, but language should not be used so that we can hang on to power of the past. It is also important that we need to know that, especially in the Western Cape, just traveling again to Vredenburg, and it was the beauty of being in the rural areas. And I think my board member, my boss, actually, Mr. Mjika, will attest to this, is that when Zinzi sang in isiXhosa, everybody sang with. When Zaan Stapelberg sang in Afrikaans, everybody sang with. The beauty of that is that Vredenburg doesn't have a township and a scheme. It's one community. They are ahead of us in the urban here. Until we're not going to get rid of the geographical apartheid structure where we live, we are going to stereotype ourselves as South Africans. You only taste the new South Africa when you have money. But when you're poor and you're black, you only experience Kailicha. When you're poor and you have a brown skin, you experience Menenberg and Lavender Hill. Now how? And when you have a little bit of money, you move over to the X-Model C school and you stay in Boston or you stay in Durbanville. Nothing wrong. I'm just giving you a picture. Because I don't want a cabinet post. I only want us to speak the truth. And why I'm saying this to you, from brutalization to hope, and I'm nearly done, is the fact, is for us to understand how we were brutalized. Because when we close the door of our households, we become apartheid agents, all of us. Black, colored, Indian, white, black. We talk about us and them because no one will listen. Yeah? Then we talk about, dis wat hulle kleurlinge sê. I'm a colored. Yeah? This is what we use. These are the terms. And we still use the K word very frequently. We still use the words for white people, a boer. These are the terms that we need to say to ourselves that we need to start to stop. So that we can, our children, because we don't have racist children, we have racist parents. Now I'm coming to the church.
Please do come there.
We come into the church. Alle nasies moet die Here dien. The VGK Church, URCSA, and I must also say, gave me confidence as a young child by giving me the opportunity of performing in shows at the church. I sang as a soloist in front of an audience that was brutally honest. My friends of Eve Club sits here, they're brutally honest. If you sing false, you're off. They were the Idols Committee, you're off. Okay? So thank you. The church played a vital role. Not pretending that something was good when it was actually bad. The church played a vital role in shaping my skills as a leader. I belonged to the Young Doctors Bond, as Professor Koopman said, where I could find my voice as a leader. But as a child, I also realized that something was wrong. I was invited to sing in the NG Moederkerk in Wellington. That time I was like the Lorica Rauchman. Wrong place, wrong time. You know, otherwise I would have been famous like Lorica Rauch. But I was invited to church, they tolerated me. So the NG Moederkerk heard about me with Attie van der Berg, the organist in Wellington. And they invited me. It was only white people were sitting in the pews, and I was a little bit struggling. I was confused. I had to enter through a side door of the church. What baffled me was that the dominee was reading from the same Bible as our dominee in the VGK kerk. The only difference being that the congregates were quiet and reserved when they sang, whereas in the VGK church, we praise the Lord with gusto. And I thought, what the Lord is happening now? And even today, that's why I can't not saying it. I must say it. And even today, the bell will toll at the NG Moederkerk at 11 o'clock and at the VGK church, only a street away from each other, at 10 o'clock. When will the bell in the new South Africa ring for all of us? If it remains like this, we are not walking the path of the legacy of Russel Botman. Then we mustn't have these lectures anymore, because then we are fooling ourselves. Because we're coming to sit very nicely, to listen to a speaker saying we've listened to Marlene le Roux. What are you going to do? Are we hiding behind religion and culture and use it as weapons? Are we still hiding? It is a strange thing and a strange phenomena that we are still in. Why are we not in front of that Casper to say enough is enough? It is crucial that we set an example with our deeds, that our words correspond with our actions, and that our deeds be true. It is crucial that we do not use the language we speak and the culture we live as weapons against each other, but rather as tools to cultivate reconciliation. It is important that we take Russel's legacy forward. Ons moet hoop gee deur 'n voorbeeld te stel aan 'n jonger generasie. We must give hope to a younger generation. Die nalatenskap van Russel Botman moet oorgaan van woorde na aksie. His legacy should be put in action. Introspeksie moet gedoen word in ons kerke. Church leaders, as you're sitting here, how do you interpret your Bible? Decolonize yourself. How do we embrace everybody in the church from all sexual orientation? How do we embrace persons with disability? Do you ask every Sunday who's got a child with a disability? Do you go visit? Do you ask the mother, how do you get with your child to church? Or is it just, has it become a formality only to pray? Or is it an action? It is then very important that we now need, as we have done in the 1980s at UWC in front of the yellow cuspers. Waar staan ons nou? Who sits in the cusp now? How do we use our language? How do we use our culture? And how we talk? How do we talk about our identity? Because we are a country and a nation that is struggle with identity. And if political parties, leaders, can stand on a platform and still be racist, then we as people need to march. But we need to march also as people, not just for plaasmoorde. We need to march for the child that's been killed at the hand of a gangster, or a child that's been raped by a father, or an LGBTI comrade, a gay person, a lesbian woman that's been killed because she's gay in the township. We need to do our marches collectively. And we need to march, all of us. If there is one murder on a farm, we need to say we're going to march as a country against, because every death matters. We can't put it in categories anymore. And as leaders, it needs to stop. Soos Russel gesê het, en soos ek glo, die lewe skuld jou niks. Life owes you nothing. We recently did extensive renovations at Artscape, because as an institution, we need to walk the talk for everybody. Also for the elderly, also for persons with disabilities, for everybody. And we have a 3-story high marbled wall in the Nuku, Afrikaans, English, and isiXhosa. And it says that the most important thing is that the journey from the Nkumaland Theatre Centre to Artscape Theatre Centre is more than just a change of name. It signifies the home of ongoing passionate creativity, a home of all. I feel South Africa, we need to start on that journey. Our journey has started. A Mandela was with us. The Mandelas are you. Ma Albertina Sisulu, it's you. We can't place our faith only in one person. It should be where society needs to stand up and say, we're going to take hands and we're going to lead this country ethically. And it doesn't need to be when you need to be a leader. You can do it very simple in your day-to-day life. With your interactions with your grandchildren. With your interactions where you serve on the soup kitchen. In your interaction with another faith-based person. In your interaction with a person that has a different sexual orientation like you, unlike you. With your interaction with a differently abled person. It is the how and it's the understanding. Don't ever use the word tolerance in your vocabulary, because tolerance means it's for a fleeting moment you're going to be in that person's presence. And when you're gone, you are still referring these words and using the words us and them. We start to need to walk the talk, and start to live that. We have reached a point in our beloved country where we as a nation need to embark on a journey from brutalization to hope. Hope that has to be put into action, not only to heal the wounds of the past, but to achieve social justice. We need to become active citizens of hope. I want to repeat. We need to become active citizens of hope. And I want to end off. All of you sitting here tonight have influenced me, even if I don't know you, your energy. You're part of my DNA. Tonight was not a sermon, it was just my experience. I can't tell you what to do. I can just share my experience of life. But it's also important. We have this beautiful country, this beautiful landscape, and we owe it to the next generation. We need to shed our ego. We need to be able to treat the Bergie the same as we treat the Vice-Chancellor, a CEO, because you can become a Bergie. To be a Bergie is a paycheck away from the next month. We don't know this story. It can be one of us. And as communities sitting here, all of you sitting here, you represent communities, you don't represent yourself. It is how you're going to walk the path.